I wish you'd come into town more often, Miss Winters. Perry Dawson, the proud tavern owner and perhaps the only semblance of a friend I have, calls after me before I reach the swinging doors. I smile back at him, pulling my long skirts up in a curtsy. I'll certainly try, I say, but as I go out into the breezy autumn day, I know it's unlikely. Margaret, my elder sister, is out of town for the weekend on business, an opportunity that doesn't come around often, so the next time I'll be able to freely visit probably won't be for many months. Knowing this, even though the storm clouds roll in faster than I anticipated, I slow my pace on the 3-mile walk home, lingering within the town borders for as long as possible before the stone paths inevitably merge into forest and rolling landscape. I replay the events of the last 2 days in my head to pass the time. The rain starts seeping through the coloring treetops. Soon my head is reduced to a long, wet mop of blonde, and my dress becomes matted to my skin. I can hear Margaret's voice dropping in disapproval in the back of my head for potentially inviting a cold. But even with the risk, I don't mind. Again, I don't know when the next chance of freedom will come. I love Margaret to death. She's been the only constant in my life, and I'll forever be grateful. However, her main method of ensuring our protection is near total isolation. It's why our cottage lies miles away from the town, tucked neatly behind the wall of forest, swallowed by 4 hills. It's why the only times we leave home is to buy and sell at the village market, or occasionally the larger neighboring cities, though in recent years, Margaret does not let me come on these ventures either. The confines of our silent prairie didn't bother me as much as a young girl, but as I grew older, I became more restless, and that only made Margaret tighten the reins over my life even further. It makes me frustrated sometimes, but honestly, I can't blame her too much. See, I have a history of bad luck, and Margaret is the only one who's been able to survive the backlash of it. Even more, she stays with me despite of it. Remembering this now makes me feel guilty for breaking the rules and possibly endangering dear Mr. Dawson over the past 2 days just by hanging around his inn. The rain is pouring by now, and a chill has settled into the air enough to make me finally pick up the pace. I clamber up the incline, and as soon as I'm over the bend, my heart leaps into my throat. Old Dolly, Margaret's favorite Clydesdale, is tied in front of the lonely cottage. Oh no, oh no, oh no. The internal panic pushes me forward, but in my haste, my skirts tangle around my legs and my ankle rolls, causing me to lose my footing and crash into the damp earth. Pain pulses through my foot. I try to rely on my other leg to stand back up, but the downpour makes the ground a slippery slope impossible for me to right myself on. The cottage is still a ways ahead, and my voice won't be able to carry all the way to my sister, especially over the heavy rain. The storm only seems to thicken, and the ground continues mushing beneath me, mud climbing up my entire backside. A rattling tickles my ears, and I'm surprised when I find a covered wagon rolling across the hilly territory nearby. I can quite literally count the number of times our prairie received any outside traffic throughout the years. Needless to say, the sight of the peddler is an anomaly, and I find myself stunned in place as he guides his horses to a quick stop. Maybe it's because I've been sheltered for so long, but I don't find myself the least bit alarmed when the giant stranger rushes towards me. Quite the opposite. I feel like a little girl again. Nose buried in a stack of romance novels, enamored with the handsome heroes inside. My body kind of dissociates for a good moment as he reaches me, and I catch a first glimpse of his face, shielded beneath his fur-lined hood. Whoever this man is peers back at me with captivating green eyes, shining beneath a fringe of dark curls. He has an earthy smell, and coupled with his stature and build, my first thought is he's a lumberjack, or some kind of farmhand. His shoulders are broad, his chest thick, again, just like the heroes I used to love reading about. I can't stop staring, completely speechless. Miss, are you alright? He asks in a husky voice, and it takes a few more minutes for my brain to process everything before I snap out of it. Oh, yeah, no, I stammer. My cheeks heave from embarrassment, and I shake my head slightly to try and jar cognitive thoughts back into my brain. I slipped and hurt my ankle. My house is just over there. My sister's waiting for me. I point towards the cottage, and he nods before taking off the outer layer of his coat and wrapping it around me. His scent fully envelops me now, and my eyes widen as he lifts me easily from the wet ground. Don't worry, miss. I'll bring you home. It's Mary Ann, I say, and he reveals a slight gap-toothed smile. William Manning. I find myself repeating his name again and again in my head, a strange giddiness lighting butterflies in my stomach the entire way to the cottage. I honestly can't even pay attention to any pain in my ankle, or the nasty weather, or even the grim lecture I'm sure to face from my sister as she flings open the door at the sound of heavy boots thudding up our deck steps. Mary Ann. Margaret's voice cut short, and I look over to find her frozen at the threshold, shocked to see the two soaked and muddied bodies dripping on the porch. She's quick to recollect herself, though, reverting back to her usual stoic face where it's near impossible to tell what she's thinking. However, I assume she must be angry, so excuses start flooding from my mouth before I can think twice. "It's my fault, Margaret. I went for a stroll and fell. This kind stranger helped me back." She merely opens the door and ushers us inside, which makes me even more worried I've upset her. "Margaret," I try again, but she ignores me. "I must thank you, sir," she says to William as he sets me on the wicker chair. "My sister tends to get herself into a lot of trouble. I hope we have not inconvenienced you too much." "Not at all. I'm just glad I was passing by," he says, introducing himself to my sister, to which she does the same in a curtsy. There's nothing I can do but wait nervously as pleasantries are exchanged. Margaret is so gifted in manners, I'm sure William has no idea she's actually interrogating him. She too knows how abnormal it is to have random passerby on our property, and being already wary of any stranger, is no doubt suspicious of this visitor in our small town. Turns out, William is a peddler stemming all the way across the country. Within the confines of this general conversation, he doesn't give much details of his journeys, but just the thought of all the adventures he must have had excites me. I want to know more. I want to see what sorts of foreign trinkets he carries in his wagon, and hear about each place they hail from. But Margaret is an expert at polite but short conversation, and she naturally guides the flow of pleasantries to an end. "So, you will only be in town for a few weeks?" she asks, and I can just catch the note of satisfaction in her countenance when he nods. "Yes, I'm friends with Perry Dawson, so I'll be residing with him." "Very well. I'll be sure to wash and return the coat you've lent my sister before your departure," she says. "Thank you again for your help. I'll make sure Marianne recovers." "Ah yes, it was lovely to meet you both." He bows, first to Margaret and then to me. However, when it's me, he couples it with a gentle kiss to my fingers, and my heart can't help but backflip once more. "Get well soon, Marianne. I do hope to see you again." I'm too stunned to speak coherently, but I nod out something in agreement, though I know deep down this will most likely be our first and last encounter. Margaret doesn't say anything for a long while in his wake. She boils the water for my bath, lays out fresh garments for me afterwards, and prepares the wrap to stabilize my ankle. The silence chews my insides to shreds, and the guilt becomes unbearable. But when I try to address the elephant in the room again, she turns to me with a blank, "This isn't up for discussion" look. "Marianne, under no circumstances are you to see that man again. Stay away from him." I knew this would be the outcome, and yet I can still feel disappointment sinking in. My gaze drops and I nod and acquiesce. Margaret says nothing more on the subject, and the night passes on like any other. A few days go by, and I try not to think about William anymore, but meeting him has been the most exciting incident I've experienced in months. Of course, I can't let my sister know this, and so I empty out all my girlish daydreams into my diary. Not once do I actually consider I'd ever get the chance to see that nice peddler again. But this afternoon, as I tend my half of the orchard, I suddenly hear the jingle of his wagon. My heart is immediately a jumble of nerves, a first thought being excitement, which is almost immediately replaced with wariness. Thankfully, though, there's no sign of my sister as the wagon rolls to a stop on the hilly path before our property line. She must still be working on the opposite side of our little farm. I take the opportunity, abandoning my half-filled bushel of fruit and racing down the aisles of trees. William is just entering the lush fields, and when I round the sharp corner, I crash directly into him. His arms instinctively reach out to catch me, light laughter rumbling from his chest. "Well, it appears your ankle is all healed," he says. "I'm glad." My face is warm as I quickly right myself. "It is, thank you. But did you really come all this way just to check up on me?" His smile is genuine, and it's then I notice the bouquet of flowers in his hand. "What's all this?" I ask, inwardly praying they're for me. Luckily, my hopes come to fruition as he holds them out for me. "Get well, present," he says, and I give him my gratitude. I've grown many kinds of flowers, but somehow these smelled so much sweeter. "Are you busy right now? I was wondering if you'd like to take a stroll," he says. My eyes widen, and without thinking, I feel my head bobbing up and down. Soon we casually roam through the forest paths bordering the valley, me forgetting all caution for my sister as I enter this new experience. At first, I'm scared I won't be able to keep up with any conversation. I'm so sheltered off, I don't think anything I have to say can possibly interest him. But it's surprising how natural talking to him is. I think his experiences are far more entertaining than my hermit life, but he seems invested in hearing about me. My interests, hobbies, day-to-day routine in our isolated acres. I owe Margaret everything, I say as we walk along the brookside, wildflowers cushioning our steps. Our parents died about a decade ago from an unknown illness. I was 8 and my sister only 12, but she was forced to grow up early to take care of me. And you both tended to the land yourselves? Well, not always. Our uncle and aunt and their 2 daughters came to stay with us for a few years. They helped us take care of the crops, and that's how we learned to harvest, cook, sew, all the things we needed to survive. They don't live with you now? I don't want to darken the mood, but honestly, the memory is only a couple years old and still haunts me, especially since I feel my bad luck is to blame. They all fell prey to the same illness our parents had. William slows beside me unconsciously, his brow furrowing in thought. I hope I'm not overstepping, but I have to ask, did you or your sister ever fall ill as well? Did none of you try to bring in a physician? Our village doesn't have an official medical office. The nearest one is in Thornbrook, somewhere in the middle of the metropolis, and while we do well, we don't have the sort of money for hospice expenses. Furthermore, whatever illness this was took effect so quickly. I fear, even if we tried to summon a physician, it would have been for nothing. And no, Margaret and I managed to survive both times. He's quiet for a while, and I fear I've ruined the flow of conversation. I'm sorry, I say, but he shakes his head. No, I'm sorry you suffered through all this, he says, offering me a small, reassuring smile. But here's to a better future, yeah? I smile, but inwardly I'm unsure. I haven't even mentioned the string of pets, the couple hired farmhands, that one family friend, all who had come to stay here at one point or another, none who were prepared for the consequences of my overarching bad luck. And once again, I feel guilty. As much as William interests me, I don't want him to be hurt too. Neither do I want to keep going behind my sister's back. William sees my face drop and concern instantly reaches across his features. Marianne? What's wrong? Listen, you probably shouldn't come around here anymore. What? Why not? It's just, after everything we've been through, Margaret and I prefer not to involve anyone else into our problems. His eyes grow soft. Marianne, you don't have to blame yourself for anything that has happened, and you certainly can't keep yourself from living due to fear. I've had many struggles and losses of my own, but if I had let that deter me from moving on, I wouldn't have become the man I am now. I would have never traveled the world and experienced all sorts of languages and cultures, art and history, so you shouldn't give up on life either. To be honest, it concerns me that you and your sister live so separately and all alone. I know I should still follow Margaret's words and bid him a final farewell. I know I shouldn't let his words inspire me, but it does, and so I let him take my fingers in his grasp, warmth swirling within my cheeks as he kisses them once more. There's a good branch of business in this area, so I've decided to extend my stay for a while. I'd very much like to see you again, Marianne. Might I be able to steal you away some afternoons? I want to say yes so bad. I want to know more about this well-spoken, well-mannered traveler, but the voice of Margaret herself, calling for me from the house, startles me back to reality. Marianne! Marianne, where are you? Her voice carries with the wind, and my heart leaps in fear she may spot the two of us together. I don't know, I say, inconspicuously trying to rush things along. Unfortunately, William doesn't notice. We could go into town, have dinner somewhere. I hear there's some annual dance next weekend too. I'd be honored to be your escort. I've heard of the town dances, but of course Margaret never allows me to go. Even worse, I can hear her approaching. Without answering, I grab hold of William and start tugging him in the opposite direction, taking the long way around to where his wagon is waiting. Is something the matter? Why are we running from your sister? I'm terribly sorry for all this, but you should really go, I say, gently pushing him towards his horse and buggy. Wait, why don't you want Margaret to know I'm here? Did I do something to offend her? It's not you. She just doesn't take well to strangers, I whisper, glancing behind my shoulder. I hope I don't look too paranoid, but my mind is more preoccupied with the prospects of Margaret catching me red-handed to care. Thank you for coming to see me. I really had such a nice time, I say with a curtsy before hurrying away. Wait, promise me I'll get to see you again. Come to town, alright? I promise, I say, again without thinking, but I just know he won't leave otherwise, and maybe, deep down, I hope I'll be able to somehow keep that vow. I could hear his wagon pulling off, and I zigzag through the orchard row so it won't seem like I'm coming from the same direction. I locate my half-filled basket I'd abandoned and quickly finish piling it with a harvest before rushing to meet Margaret. She's just about to call me again when I come up from behind. "I'm right here," I say, and she turns to me with a slight frown. "Why are you so out of breath? Are you alright?" "Mm-hmm," I nod, hoping she can't hear the drum solo my heart's playing. "I picked some extra apples to make pies tonight." Margaret smiles, but before she can say anything, the sounds of William's wagon rolling by interrupts. The slight warmth in her face fades, and my heart's drum patterns only skyrocket as we both listen to it fade into the distance. It takes everything in me to keep a straight face when Margaret asks, "I wonder who that is. Did you see anybody?" I've always been a terrible liar, so I decide the best way to cover my tracks is to rely on a half-truth. "Yes, I spotted that William man passing through again. Perhaps he was selling in the next village." Margaret nods, not pressing any further, and I try not to openly sigh in relief. "Let's call it a day for now," she says. "Tomorrow I'll return that stranger's coat, and hopefully he'll be gone soon enough." I remember what William told me about sticking around the area for a while, but I keep quiet as I follow Margaret back to the house. Still, I cannot get him off my mind. The days pass, and he rides by pretty often, much to my sister's annoyance, much to my pleasure. The first few times I hide away somewhere to avoid him, but eventually, my desire to see him outweighs Margaret's strict command yet again. A secret routine for our daily rendezvous comes together. I would hear his wagon roll by, make sure my sister spotted me in the opposite direction, then sneak back around to where I'd meet William in the safety of the woods. My strolls with him became the highlight of my day. It makes me sing through the rest of my chores and giggle at random times and daydream into my diary long through the night. It's the most happiest I felt in years, and it's not long before I reconsider William's words during our first stroll. Maybe my bad luck streak has ended and I really can move on. Maybe William and I can even become... I sigh, breaking the train of thought as I collapse onto my bed for the night. One problem still remains. Margaret. Thank you so much for watching. You can check out this story and others on my Wattpad. Please be sure to give this video a like, subscribe to help support my channel, and stay tuned for the next one.